Although they had the most primitive of tools, they were still able to create those beautiful boats. Also at the Viking Museum, we see relics from that period, such as a beautiful hand-carved cart and the symbols of their pagan gods. These gods were found on the staved churches built in the 11th and 12th centuries because that was the period of transformation from paganism to Christianity. The people would not go in these churches unless they saw the symbols of their pagan gods on the outside together with a Christian cross. And by the way, it was the coming of Christianity that finally brought an end to the Viking era. Well, today, the young Norwegians march past the palace of the king, and there on the balcony above stand the royal family waving at the citizens below. Of all the colorful celebrations that we find in Norway, the most important to the people would have to be their Constitution Day celebration. On this day, every Norwegian has the opportunity to express his love for his country and respect for his king. And thousands parade through the streets of Oslo, waving their flags high and proudly. Norway does have a king, but it's a democratic monarchy. The members of parliament elected by popular vote. They are the ones who plan the destiny of this country, with the king basically a figurehead. But I know of no other country in the world where the king is more loved than here in Norway. From Oslo, we're going out into the fjords, also to the west coast of the country, to the beautiful city of Bergen. After leaving the freeways surrounding Oslo, the roads begin to narrow. Most roads throughout the country are well-paved two-lane roads. We also find numerous switchback roads throughout the country because of the steep mountainous terrain. But believe it or not, they have bus service along this road. I went up to the bus driver and I said, "Is this trip really necessary?" The bus driver said, "Oh, don't worry if we don't make it, you get your money back." I also discovered that the Norwegian drivers are very careful because the careless ones don't live very long. However, Norway is not a country for haste, but for leisure. At every turn in the road, we find another magnificent sight. There are few bridges spanning the fjords and sounds, so these ferry boats provide an important link in this country's transportation system. Oh, you may have to wait a half hour for the boat, but then you'll be on the other side in about 20 minutes. In that brief period, you may count 15 waterfalls plunging 2,000 feet to the fjords below. You may find yourself suddenly surrounded by snow-capped peaks, and along the water's edge, blossoming fruit trees. There are 3 seasons right before your eyes. Norway also has the largest glacier in all Europe. It's called Jostedal Glacier. Its white mantle covers one of the mountain ranges in the fjords. Its white fingers extend down the various valleys, forming tributaries of that main glacier. This particular tributary is called Nygard Glacier. When you're on it, it appears huge, but it's a very small portion of the total glacier. In order to reach the glacier, we have to cross this lake that has been formed by the melting ice. At the foot of the glacier, you see water surging out from beneath that blue-green ice, water that feeds the lake. We also met a couple of guides at the foot of the glacier who were happy to take us up on that ice for a nominal sum. They provided all of the necessary equipment, such as ropes and crampons. Melting glaciers feed the rivers and waterfalls all summer long. This water provides Norway with an important and inexpensive source of hydroelectric power. In fact, Norway supplies electricity to her neighbors. Some of those power plants are carved right into the solid rock so as not to mar the natural beauty of this country. Those of you who are campers will find Norway a camper's paradise. Those of you who are traveling by automobile have the rare pleasure of sampling some of the delightful country inns such as Roisheim. 300 years ago, this was a working farm. But about 100 years ago, they turned it into a tourist hotel, and it has been that ever since. Here you have the opportunity to enjoy the flavor of old Norway. The bedding in Norway is a bit different from what we have. They use eiderdown quilts. You're supposed to wrap that quilt around you as a cocoon, hoping to stay in it all night. You know what this is? An iron. Nothing more than a wooden slat with a handle attached to it. You move it back and forth across the linen, the friction creates the necessary heat to iron the linen. That's the way they used to do it. You may wish to take a ride through the countryside by horse and carriage. You will pass buildings that have stood here for centuries. You truly feel as though you've stepped into the past. As we were going along this country road, we suddenly heard a distant dinner bell ring. That horse of ours galloped back to the farm. We couldn't even stop him. He knew what was waiting for him. After coming to one of these dinners, it doesn't take a great deal of encouragement to come the second time. Along the west coast is the city of Bergen, the second largest with a population of 220,000 in Greater Bergen. It's often called the most beautiful city in Norway, located at the gateway to the fjords and to northern Norway. The main shopping area extends all the way down to the wharf, where you find the outdoor market where one may buy everything from flowers to reindeer skins. The people of Bergen are very proud of their city, and rightly so. However, other Norwegians claim that those who live here brag excessively about their town, and there are many stories about the people of Bergen. There's one story about a youngster from Bergen who was attending school in a neighboring town. On the first day of school, the teacher asked the youngsters where they were from. All the students replied, except this one little boy from Bergen who refused to say. Well, at the end of the day, when the other students had left, the teacher approached this one youngster and asked him why. He stood up proudly and said, "Well, teacher, I'm from Bergen, and I just didn't want to brag on the first day." Also along the wharf are the old buildings from the Hanseatic League. 400 to 600 years ago, German merchants came here to establish commerce with the Norwegians. But they did not want to socialize with them, so they built their own apartment houses, warehouses, and stores. They stayed to themselves, except for business. Only German men were sent to Norway to be certain that they would return to the fatherland. Those old buildings are in striking contrast to the rest of Bergen, for this city is ultra-modern in every respect, enjoying the most modern amenities of any society. Steamships come and go every day, as well as hydrofoil boats that take us speedily to the various communities along the coast. Since there's so much water, there are boats everywhere. They're certainly well used on the weekends and during summer vacation. It's not surprising that an inspiring country such as Norway would father one of our great composers, Edvard Grieg.